Please like and comment below and subscribe and share for more first-person encounters.
Case number A006-1. Horror in the Apple Orchard. My name is Joe and I currently live in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. I would like to share an incident with you and your readers that happened in 1972 while I was a counselor at Camp Nawakwa. We would take the kids on a hike through the backwoods and apple orchards to the clearing on the hill. There we would build a campfire and spend the night in sleeping bags. I liked it because it was the only time we could spend time with the female staff from the camp. One night several of the counselors were sitting near the campfire and bantering about. One of the counselors, whose name was Paul, was reciting certain passages from the Bible and discussing related religious subjects. He was a theology student at the Gettysburg Seminary. At one point a female counselor asked him if he believed in the afterlife and ghosts. Paul didn't hesitate in giving her an answer as he said there are spirits, and I have witnessed many. He then described apparitions of soldiers he had seen at the seminary. Before long, every person in the group was creeped out. It was getting late and all the kids were already asleep. We decided to get into our sleeping bags and get some needed rest. Usually one or two of the counselors would stay awake in shifts and watch over the area. After a few hours I was startled out of my slumber when someone started to shake me. It was a female counselor who was frantic. She had noticed that one of the 10-year-old girls from her cabin group was not in her sleeping bag and she couldn't find her. One counselor stayed behind with the kids while the rest of us started to meander through the orchard looking for the girl. We were searching for hours and dawn was beginning to break. We had been in contact with the camp director by radio to see if the girl had returned to camp. There was no sign of her. Then suddenly, the girl appears from the orchard. She was hysterical and crying. There was 2 gashes on her back and several scratches on her arms and legs. We immediately called the camp for medical help. Paul and myself rushed the girl back to the camp, which was about a mile or so away. While I carried her on the trail, she told us that an ugly man had grabbed her from her sleeping bag and carried her to a house. She said that she had fallen into a gully after she had gotten away from the man and had hurt her back. When we reached the camp, the police and ambulance were there waiting for her. We gave our statements to the police and told them the girl's story, which they totally disregarded. To be honest, I didn't believe her story either, but Paul was convinced something odd had happened. That was the last overnight sleep out for the summer, though the season was ending the next week anyway. The incident had always bothered me, and there was never any resolution since the police said that the girl had wandered off and got hurt while trying to find her was back to the site. Well, that changed a few weeks ago. I was contacted recently by Paul, who is a Lutheran pastor in New Jersey. We had kept in contact off and on for the past 40 years. The incident with the girl has always been in the back of our minds since then. He said that he had some information to tell me. He had received an email from the daughter of the girl at the camp. She was contacting Paul because she had found a card with his name in her mother's confidential papers. Her mother, whose name was Kathy, had passed away a few months previous to this contact. There was also a letter written by her mother detailing her experience that night at camp. She wrote that she was kidnapped by the ghost of an old man and that it had tried to lock her in the cellar of an old dilapidated farmhouse. When she broke free, a wolf-like being attacked her. She was able to get away after it had pinned her down and she hit it in the muzzle with a rock. Paul told me that Kathy wrote that she had been in therapy ever since the incident, but that no one ever believed her. Kathy also wrote that a wolf-like spirit would appear and harass her day and night. She had written Paul's name and other contact information on a card with the instructions. That's about all I have to tell you. Paul is deeply troubled by this revelation and feels somewhat responsible that he didn't help Kathy earlier, though Kathy never sought his help at any time before her death. Do you believe that a ghost could have physically kidnapped Kathy? What are your thoughts on the wolf-like spirit? You have my permission to reprint this if you wish. Joey.
Case number A006. 2. Approached by the departed. About 8 years ago, I was living with my boyfriend who was one of 7 brothers and 1 sister. I was told about the sister Diane who was killed in 1971 in a car accident. My boyfriend's 19-year-old son lived with us until he was later killed in an accident. The next several weeks after he died, I heard footsteps coming to my room and sensed him by my bed. On one occasion, I felt so strongly he was standing there I even said, "I know you are there. It's okay to show yourself. I won't be afraid." He replied telepathically, "I can't always show myself. It's a universal law." I had never heard the term universal law prior to that. One night, around 3 a.m., I heard loud talking and footsteps coming through the house. Suddenly, my boyfriend's son was at the end of my bed saying, "Hey Sue, Diane is here and she wants to talk to you." I turned and saw a girl next to me in bed. She looked like a real person, even though it was dark. I noticed her hair shimmered, catching any bit of light, and her skin was white, but wasn't pasty, and had a luminous quality. I said to her, "Diane, you are here. Ever since I have lived in this area and been around your family, I have been told you are dead." I soon found out not to say this to a spirit ghost, because she quickly corrected me very sternly, saying I have always been alive. I have never been dead. She told me to tell the family her name was on a wall and now it's covered. She kissed my cheek and hugged me, then vanished. There I was sitting up wondering if I was dreaming and wondering why my boyfriend wasn't next to me. I soon heard the toilet flush and my boyfriend climbing back in bed. I asked him if he heard talking or noises. I told him his son and sister were just here, and I talked to his sister. He first told me, "Oh, go back to sleep." But I described his sister and told him what she said to me, and he sobbed as the other family members did as they said, "Oh, yes, that was Diane." I later learned what her message meant. When Diane was a little girl, she wrote her name on the basement wall in the old house where they had lived. Since it had been torn down, so indeed her name is covered. I have been visited by relatives, friends, and others I do not know. Sue.
Case number A006-3 by Bobby Janice's Ghost on eBay. Earlier this year, I began to hear strange voices come from my garage, and specifically my golf clubs. The voice would repeat Syringamelia, Syringamelia. At first I had no idea what the ghost was saying, so I googled the word. Syringamelia is the disease that paralyzed and killed Hall of Fame golfer Bobby Jones. I asked the apparition, "Are you Bobby Jones?" The ghost then became visible, dressed in 1950s golfing gear. The ghost said, "Yes, I am Bobby Jones." I didn't know what to do, so in panic I took the jar next to me and forced the ghost of Bobby Jones into the container. Thankfully, this ghostly version of Bobby Jones was the paralyzed version of him, and not the pristine athlete from the 1920s. As much as I like having Mr. Jones in my house, my wife is petrified of ghosts, and is now forcing me to sell him. I have decided to sell Mr. Jones on eBay, and donate half of the proceeds to the Cure Syringamelia Fund. Unfortunately, Mr. Jones' ghost can only be seen by true believers. If you are not a true believer, bid with caution, for you may be unable to see him. I will not be giving refunds, so bid with caution, as this is something impossible to authenticate and verify. So if you had visions of hitting the links with Ghost Bobby, think again. Ghost Bobby can't walk. But before you buy him, you'll have to look in the mirror and figure out where you stand on the morality of purchasing a person, even a dead person. Also, though the buy now price is 000, I have a feeling if you meet the starting bid of, no one's going to outspend you.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.